Last week I talked about the CrowdStrike outage that happened on July 19th. It took down millions and millions of Windows computers. Windows was the majority of the system that is affected. Uh, for any listeners that isn't sure of what was happening, essentially, CrowdStrike, which is a cybersecurity company, pushed out an update that crashed and blue screened of death millions of computers. And basically, the blue screen of death is just essentially giving your computer a heart attack in a sense. Minor heart attack, I should say. Yeah, back on July 19th, there was an update that was pushed out to the antivirus application, the Falcon sensor, and it brought down so many computers across various sectors. One of the companies that was affected by this was Delta. So Delta had to cancel more than 5,000 flights that weekend and had blue screens still visible at airports days after the initial crash. So among the costs, there were more than 40,000 servers that they had to physically touch and reset, quote unquote, as well as compensation payments to travelers that left the airports. So overall, their Delta estimated that they lost about, I believe it was $500 million due to the outage. That's between the canceled flights, giving people, compensations, and yeah, they lost a shit ton of money. So looking at this article here, and this is from The Verge. Looks like they were talking to someone from Delta. So asked about a continuing relationship with Microsoft after the crash. Oh yeah, that's another thing I want to mention. Delta is also looking to sue Microsoft, and they're putting part of the blame for the outage on their end, even though Microsoft really didn't have much of a say on this. This is a interview with the Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian. So they asked him about continuing relationship with Microsoft after the crash, and Bastian mentioned that he regards it as a probably the most fragile platform. And when they asked the question, when was the last time you heard of a big outage at Apple? He placed some of the blame on the malicious of big tech companies, which lately have been lifted by generative AI hype, saying they're building the future and they have to make sure that they fortify the current. So Windows is I wouldn't say Windows is fragile in a sense. It's there's definitely a lot of flaws with Windows, but it's not a fragile platform by any means. So continuing on with the article, apparently the only thing offered to Delta so far from two companies was free consulting advice. So after that whole outage, CrowdStrike put out a sort of compensation for those that were affected in the form of a $10 Uber Eats or DoorDash gift card. I wasn't sure which, but they were saying like, yeah, we apologize for this outage. So order some food on us, not even fully on us, but we'll cover the delivery fee. Those that are affected, all yeah, got was a bunch of $10 Uber Eats or DoorDash gift cards, and Delta wasn't even a part of that, according to this. So all they were offered was like consulting advice. I don't know how many of my listeners have flown Delta. I haven't personally. I think the only airlines that I've ever flew was Southwest and United when I went to Europe. I don't know. I've heard mixed stuff about Delta. I don't know how many of my listeners actually flown Delta or not. I personally have ever flown through Spirit. Was it Spirit? No, it wasn't Spirit. It was Southwest and United Airlines. I've heard mixed stuff about Delta Airlines, but it is what it is. Apparently, they only got was consulting advice. So, me personally, as a CEO, if I was a CEO of Delta, I would be pissed. Like, yo, just give me some of that. Give me some of that $10 Uber Eats. CNBC previously reported Delta has hired attorney David Boyce to seek damages. And it's not even Delta alone that's looking to sue. CrowdStrike investors, they filed a proposed class action lawsuit this week because they're trying to get their money back. The shareholders now regard those, the bet, not that. The suit cites CrowdStrike CEO George Kurtz's comments on March 5th call that the software was validated, tested, and certified. And because of the CEO, saying that the shareholders now are saying that those claims were false and CrowdStrike wasn't performing the same level of testing on rapid response content updates as it does with other updates. The CrowdStrike investors are suing CrowdStrike as a whole because they want their money back. Delta is suing CrowdStrike and Microsoft. So it's been a whole fucking mess here. I don't know how CrowdStrike will be able to financially recover from this.
I am never going to financially recover from this.
Continuing on here with the article, as described in Tom Moran's recap of the events on the 19th, unlike Microsoft, Apple has in recent years restricted the access of third party developers to have access to the kernel of macOS. I butchered that completely. That is on me. A Microsoft spokesperson said that the Wall Street Journal said to the Wall Street Journal that it cannot legally wall off its operating system the same way Apple does because of an understanding it reached with the European Commission following a complaint. So, in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of shit happening with tech companies, gaming companies, and EU. One notable example is back, I think last year or before the iPhone 15 was released, Apple was basically being sued by the EU because of the use of the lightning cable. The EU basically said you have to start using a standardized version of the chart of the cable, cannot be using a separate own system, yada yada yada. It was a whole slew, it was a big mess. Now basically the iPhone 15 comes with a USB-C cable. Which me personally, I'm fine with that. I'm cool with that. I have plenty of USB-C cables, not as much Lightning cables because I only have an iPhone. My iPad takes a USB-C, so it's about time. It's about time. So here, Microsoft is saying that it cannot wall off its operating system because of the European Commission's complaint, but the European Commission disagrees. It told this article or the company, The Verge, that Microsoft is free to decide on its business model and to adapt its security infrastructure to respond to threats, provided this is done in line with the EU competition law. There's a whole lot of stuff that is happening. Yeah, we'll see. We're gonna keep an eye on this. We're gonna see if Delta does follow through with this lawsuit. I'm more than likely the investors are going to continue with the lawsuit. They're trying to get some of their money back, and we'll see if Microsoft gets dragged into this. Who knows?